सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Bare Knuckle Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Guess who I have on the podcast again?
I'm back.
It's Miss Kennedy. She's back. I'm so happy. Hi, Kennedy.
Hello. You thought you got rid of me, everyone.
It's been really good. I mean, Kennedy and I have been working through the steps, which is really nice. And I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but we were talking about we just go through the yellow book, the workbook of the 12 steps of adult children step workbook, which is basically almost the red book, but just with specific questions and workbooks. So we just talked about we just finished the promises last time, and we wanted to talk about the it's not really a chapter, it's just a page called the solution, and we're going to break that down paragraph for paragraph. How does that sound?
I'm so excited for this. It blows my mind that this book has taken everything, all of this brilliant information, and broken it down so simply, where, they're saying, okay, here's your laundry list. Here's the solution. Here's the promises. It's just, you know what you're getting yourself into. It's actually really sweet.
Yeah, it really is. And I anyone who would like to read this book and work on this book, I would suggest you get someone to do it with you. I wouldn't suggest really to do this alone. I mean, there are some people, if you're very vulnerable and really working through some stuff, grab a sponsor, get somebody to help you with this book, someone who's already gone through the book, preferably. All right.
In my experience, maybe you could do the first step by yourself. Maybe you could do the second step. By the time you get to the fourth step, man, don't do that by yourself.
Don't do this alone, kids. All right. The solution. I'll read the first paragraph. The solution is to become your own loving parent. As ACA becomes a safe place for you, you will find freedom to express all the hurts and fears that you have kept inside, to feel and to free yourself from the shame and blame that are carryovers from the past. You will become an adult who is imprisoned no longer by childhood reactions. You will recover the child within you, learning to love and accept yourself. Okay.
Do we want to define what a loving parent is?
Yeah, it could be very helpful if you'd like to. I would say it's the God voice. It's the loving parent, the one who. Go ahead. You would like to.
Yeah, I mean, so when we read the Loving Parent Guide, which is another great literature for anybody trying to heal from really any overly critical self-talk. It describes the loving parent as this inner voice that's actually sweet and kind, and it's the opposite to this imbalance of the critical parent. And the way it describes it, especially as, then you go down, there's like the whole inner family, the inner teenager, and then as well the inner child. And the inner child is that inner creative, loving spark, the curiosity, the thing that made the world more vibrant. Then the inner teen is sort of their protector. And then the parent is supposed to guide them. So I always tend to think of it as, here we are as the inner child is this part of us, that part and parcel of Krishna, of God.
Mm.
And that's a very vulnerable thing to hold despite its own power. And
Absolutely.
then the inner teen is another layer of that. Not
It's
the
like the
ego, by the
kshatriya.
way.
It's the kshatriya, the inner
Yeah.
teen.
It's that little part of us that's like, don't you dare mess with this little gremlin. I love this
Yeah.
little kid hiding in the back. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
But as the guidepost, the parent is supposed to be the one who sort of reins it in gently. And a
The
lot of
adult
us, because
room.
we were not reined in gently as children, um, we've developed an inner critical parent that basically whips us into shape verbally, physically, psychologically.
Mm.
It doesn't go very well. But in my opinion, the sweetest version of a loving parent is sort of what in New Age spirituality I've heard called the higher self,
Yeah.
or I feel like it's that version of us that is spiritually developing, that is coming into that compassionate space, and that is able to guide this little spark of God through
Mm.
life.
Oh, that's so nice.
And I don't know about you, but I've never heard of God being able to listen to a screaming human and go, okay, yeah, I'll do what you say. All of the stories are about someone loving God into submission.
It's so true, isn't it? And or us trashing ourselves into submission. It's
Yeah.
just, it's the self-will run riot. And it's like what it says here, where it says you'll become an adult who is imprisoned no longer by childhood reactions. The hurt child,
Yeah.
the hurt child who will, and I always when I first started working in this program, I was always like, oh, why do we always have to talk about the inner child? It's so it's so I don't know. I was like, ugh, I don't want to talk about that. That's stupid, like. But if I really think about it, it's just the part of me that wasn't protected.
Mm.
And this is how some scars work. We learn something, we learn a behavior. These are also, our nartas, whether they're from this life already or last lives. But it's if we're constantly having reactions based on the child who learned not the proper way through love, like you said, through love, but just through the critical parent or the critical self-talk. Sometimes we get stuck in time in certain situations where we will continue to have those kind of reactions over and over again. And when I notice that happens to me, sometimes I'm fortunate enough to be able to step back for a minute and say, what would God do right now? What would Radhana Swami do right now? What would so and so do right now? What is my program saying? Am I being the person I want to be? Am I reacting the way I would like to react? And so these are just this is like this whole thing can be taken into totally like mystic spirituality and completely tangible
Yeah.
things to do. It's like the whole package.
What I mean, what's so amazing about that though is to be able to hold on to the hidden meanings, the esoterics. Everything is connected.
Mm.
Everything we learn in this can be applied in spirituality and in practicality. And it's bridging that gap through that healing process. And what I particularly love about the inner child and the loving parent relationship, and of course the inner teen that's in there somewhere, and I'm working on her. I don't know what she's doing yet. Um, she's just kind of fuming, and I'm letting her do it.
Oh, mine's feral, just feral.
Well, I don't
Feral
know what's up with
teenager.
mine, so I'm not going to make any assumptions about her yet. But with my inner
She's got
child,
mine has she carries a baseball bat, has matted hair, and and wears like old animal skins.
she's like just a little Shivite coming out of the forest, ready to make some messes.
Totally. Not
That's
even a baseball
awesome.
bat. It's like a like freaking Tyrannosaurus bone or something like.
Amazing. You know what? She sounds great. She sounds
She doesn't know
wonderful.
how to speak either. She's just like, "Ugh."
I mean, that is
Pneumonia.
communicating.
Yeah.
It's bare minimum, but it's communicating. You know, that's the thing is I saw this video that I absolutely love on one of my, well, it wasn't quite a doom scroll, but on one of my scrolls of Instagram. And it was this woman who was doing this exercise video, and she was doing it completely like not even half energy. She was like barely doing it. And she goes, "It's better to do something with trying very little than to not do it at all." And there are times where I'm like, maybe that's my inner teen, where she goes, "No, no, 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 no. We can work smarter, not harder." And I'm like, how is this smarter? You're literally just laying there eating potato chips. And she goes, trust me, it's smarter.
I love it. All
Yeah.
right.
So with that becoming your own loving parent, I think means maturing enough emotionally, spiritually, and being able to step into that role of the loving parent. Because I think also too what it warns against in this book about carrying those behaviors forward is it's that inner critical parent who becomes the parent of your own children.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know a single person who I don't know a single person who doesn't have an inner critical parent. I know a couple people who can touch on the loving parent, but unless they go through some sort of training, therapy, 12 step, I actually don't know a single person who is completely outside of their critical parent.
Actually, I don't either. I don't think that that exists, but perhaps it does, and we don't know.
Maybe after, maybe if this becomes school curriculum globally, then we'll see.
You know what? That's such a great point. I think things like this should be school curriculum.
Well,
It's like there's just so much missing in that. But
I
that's a
mean, I
whole nother
always wondered what the point of a high school counselor was, because the most they ever did was like in elementary school, they would get that giant, like, circular parachute thing out, and then we would all like circle around the whole class, would grab a side, we'd throw it in the air, and we'd sit under it, and we'd look up and be like, wow, we made a tent. But what if we actually did something useful and we had these conversations and we had to develop our own
But what if
loving
we
guidepost?
what if we actually did something useful? I love
Keep
it.
keep the parachute. Honestly, keep the parachute and have group conversations in this. And if people are in classes with people that they don't feel comfortable having these conversations with, then have them go to their school counselor. Like, it's so funny to me how we don't actually have to change anything as far as a structure goes in order to implement better curriculum. We just need to
Totally.
choose better topics.
I am so on that. I know my school counselor. It never happened to me, but I talked to her like one of my best friends growing up, and she was like, "Do you remember our school counselor?" I'm not going to name any names. He used to make me sit on his lap, and all these girls, they sit on his lap. Like that's the '80s. Like that's what happened. Like, come here, little girl, and he made like weird passes at all the girls. He didn't do that to me. I don't remember him ever doing that with me, but
See,
isn't that gross?
you go through things like that, you normalize them, and now everybody's angry because one dude didn't have self-control. Like,
Yeah.
and that's something else about the loving parent is it's having that self-control without beating yourself up for it, because we don't all need a disciplinarian. And I think that's an issue, especially in Western culture, is you grow up and everyone, like a good disciplined child is the standard. When in reality, sometimes you don't need someone to yell at you to get your shoes on and get out the door. You need someone to sit by you and say, "Hey, you're slowing down in the mornings. What's going on?" Like, there's no
Mm.
curiosity about the state of a child.
No, there isn't. That's so true. And it's more prevalent, I guess, I think maybe with you guys you had a little bit more, but I don't know.
I
I'm
think there
assuming.
was some for kids I was around, but I didn't get it. Like, the quote
Yeah, I
of my
didn't.
childhood was, "Kenny, get out of the car," which I thought was really funny. At the time, it was not, but like, I just take my time gathering my things. I'm on my own clock, and they're like, "Nope, we're going. You're slowing us down." And they just
So
like
funny. You
leave.
and my daughter have so much in common. You're both the same. You're both Taurus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, it used to drive me insane. so slow to get out of the car, slow to leave the house, slow to
Yep.
put her shoes on, slow to get ready. And I'm like Speedy Gonzalez.
Well, yeah, you're a Leo,
Yeah, it's like,
and your
"Rah!"
birthday's tomorrow, so happy almost
Thanks,
birthday.
yeah. You know what? It's so funny. I didn't even remember that it was my birthday. And now
You
Dexter's
literally
trying to.
mentioned it to your son before we got on.
No, no, I was going to say today. I didn't remember
Oh,
it today until I got home because Dexter is so sweet. He was trying to be all sly. He was like, when Lex comes home, I'm gonna help him shop. And I'm like, okay. Like he's never done that. He's never like, I'm gonna help shop. And he's like, and I was like, why? And then he was like, oh, just because. And then I was like, oh, that's right. And he's like, you like Oreo cheesecake, right?
oh wow.
And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay.
Good son.
I know, I love him.
So,
Okay, let's go on to the next paragraph.
all
You
right.
read.
The healing begins when we risk moving out of isolation. Feelings and buried memories will return. By gradually releasing the burden of unexpressed grief, we slowly move out of the past. We learn to reparent ourselves with gentleness, humor, love, and respect. This process allows us to see our biological parents as the instruments of our existence. Our actual parent is a higher power whom some of us choose to call God. Although we had alcoholic or dysfunctional parents, our higher power gave us the 12 steps of recovery. And truly, like anything that comes into your life from the spiritual side of things, I've found just absolutely has to be a gift from the higher power, from God, from Krishna, whatever you want to call him. Because if I had found 12-step recovery before having received a path in religion or in spirituality that worked for me, I would not have caught on to this at all.
Mm.
Like
You
everything
know,
comes to you in the
oh,
order
go
it's
ahead.
supposed to. It's kind of wild.
I think it's really interesting also because, you know, it says here when we, the healing begins when we risk moving out of isolation. Feelings and buried memories feelings and buried memories will return. So the thing is, I really love the key thing is when we risk moving out of isolation. And I don't even find isolation, I would go further as to say moving out of your comfort zone.
Mm.
You can isolate in a feeling. Just isolated one feeling doesn't mean that you're isolating from everything. Like I would say, like for me, risking moving out of my old comfortable behaviors, getting out of that comfort zone, and that's when healing starts, when we get up, move a muscle, change a thought, start doing different things in order to get out of that mindset. It becomes this pattern of thinking, getting trapped in the thoughts, acting, and then it spirals and starts again and goes over and over again. And we never get out of that pattern unless we break that. And it starts with just a little bit. It's not like we have to change everything. It's just that, that one little thing like that I don't know if you've ever had it, but like, I don't know, like say you do one thing and then you come home and I don't know, you have a bad message for yourself, something like, like, God, like, when am I going to learn or when am I going to do this or, you know, and it's like the answer to that is right now. That's when I'm going to learn because I'm not going to do that again. Or I'm just going to be aware of what I just did. I'm
You know,
going to do something different next.
that's like something that's wild to me about it because the particular feedback loop I was caught in was that people pleasing, put the mask on, and that lies to everybody about who you actually are until you yourself forget who you are, which was one of the traits. But a lot of times when we're trying to self-improve, because it's such an uncomfortable position, we wait for the perfect timing. There is no perfect timing. Nothing in this world really is perfect on its individual level. It's in
Mm,
groups where we can fill in the gaps for each
right.
other. Puzzle pieces, they're always very imperfectly shaped, but they fit into something. Um, it's when we start filling in those gaps for ourselves with a good community not using other people to fill the void, but allowing other people to be around to do what you can't do. But there are things that you have to do on your own. You'll never find the perfect timing, but you can find the right support to get you there. You can find the motivation. Because when we're in those patterns, it is so easy to fall into the victim mindset, to feel like we're alone, to just dive into that level of just absolute
Right.
ignorance. And I don't say that in like the modern sense of like, oh, what an ignorant human being, as though like they're about to destroy the world. You can destroy yourself and no one else in ignorance simply by not understanding the root of where that criticism comes from is internal, not
Mm.
understanding or facing what you faced as a child that brought you there. Because we're also living in a society that doesn't know how to water the root. We like
Mm.
to fix the symptoms of a problem, but we'll never really address holistically where it came from.
Which stands true for so much, even
Yeah.
medicine, just like physical, like, modern physical medicine. We're a society of band-aids. We don't look
Yeah.
holistically about what's going on, and it's the same with feelings. It's an interesting point that you brought up also, because if we take that also into just what happens is when we often, as soon as we become aware of this program and become aware of their solutions and we really, you know, reflect about what we're reading, it becomes huge because we start to see that not only are we surrounded ourselves with thoughts of negative thinking, but we also surround ourselves with people who
Yeah.
what is it in English? The word in English, people who bestätigt, the people who um damn it, what is it in English?
Yeah, that's too German of a word for me to figure out.
Yeah, people who really who will also, like, you marry your father. People say you marry your father, you marry your mother.
Oh,
You
okay,
surround
yeah.
yourself with people who will tell you also that you're not good enough. And maybe not directly, but you surround yourself with people who don't have the same goals. You surround yourself, like, I always wondered, when I grew up in New York City. I grew up in New York City. I'm a New York City girl. And when I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, we moved upstate to this, like, really nasty, horrible suburb. And with, like, golf clubs and, like, country clubs, and either you had, like, townies or richies. Like, that was it. There was nothing in between. It was just townies. Do you know what a townie is?
Not really.
Oh yeah, it's just out of your. I think that's out of your. A townie is like like the working class guy people.
Okay.
So the ones who lived in town on the main street, who didn't, like, they lived in apartments in the suburbs. Those were like townies. So so you either had those two things. And I always wondered, because I always wanted to go back to the city. I hated being in the suburbs. I hated it. I hated it more than anything. And I find myself today in the suburbs. And I I always questioned this and always said, why am I in the suburbs? I don't have friends in the suburbs. I don't hang out with my neighbors in the suburbs. I don't relate to people in the suburbs, but I don't want to be in the city. But it's it's that surrounding yourself, even if it has negative effects, with the familiar.
Yeah.
It's the familiar.
Well, there's two interesting things about that. One is that even if you focus on something simply because you don't want it, it will still show up. And and the other thing is your external environment reflects your internal environment. So if you haven't done any work, doesn't have to be a 12-step program, but if you haven't done any work on the root of your issues, you will continue to attract them because subconsciously you know that they're still there. You haven't done that work. And so
Mm.
if you don't heal any part of yourself, you'll keep opening the wound. That's just kind of how it goes.
Absolutely. And that's why we have the program. It says here, our actual parent is a higher power whom some of us choose to call God.
And if
That's
it's
it.
helpful for you to keep the parents you got, if it's helpful to keep one of them, if it's helpful to keep a mentor from your childhood, fine. But at the end of the day, the person who can teach you the most, the person who can heal you the best, is surrendering to that higher power, which is the whole point of step 1.
Totally. Totally.
Do you want to read the next paragraph?
Sure. This is the action and work that heals us. We use the steps. We use the meetings. We use the phone. We share our experience, strength, and hope with each other. We learn to restructure our sick thinking one day at a time. We're going to break this down. We're just going to read that part now because there's a lot. There's a lot in there. And, the action and work that heals us, those are the steps. We use the steps. So, and this is the thing. It's funny because my podcast, the podcast that I did, the episode that I did on Monday was just about this, exactly about this. And this is the formula. You know how Prabhupada says the prescribed duties? Here are the prescribed duties. Here are the prescribed suggestions of the 12-step program, of ACA, of AA, and all the other ones, is that we use the steps, we use the meetings, we use the phone, and we share our experience, strength, and hope. Why do we share our experience, strength, and hope? Why? I don't know how many meetings I've been to where it's like, and this is the thing, I understand the need to dump. There is a need to dump sometimes, and there's a need, and I'm not saying I've never dumped at a meeting. I've dumped at a meeting when I've been really down. But I always have to be very, very, very conscious. Me, myself, not everybody, but I do. I do for me, because I know when I go into a meeting and I hear someone sharing, okay, I've dumped, it's been bad, I've had a shitty week. Here's what I did. I called somebody, I worked the steps, and I shared at a meeting, right? And my hope is that it continues to go on, and I can go further into my recovery and get over this, get through this, even if it comes again, just to get through it this time. And that's the climate, that's the culture of a 12-step program in a meeting. When you want to dump, call your sponsor. You call your sponsor, you call somebody individually, but when we're at meetings, we want to keep that culture of what it was like, what we're doing now, and what we hope for. That's what we want to do. It's so important. And we want to use the tools, or we lose the tools. We work the steps, we use the phone, we call people, we share. Yeah. What do you think of that, Kennedy?
I mean, I just love that as a structure, though. Here's what I'm going through. Here's what happened. Here's what I did well, or here's where I don't. This is where I can improve. Because even being able to see where you can improve is a strength. If you cannot find a strength, seeing where you could use strength is strength. Just like if wanting to have sincerity means you are sincere somewhere.
Totally.
And then hope, ending it with hope, is like no matter how dark it gets, there's always something. And I've definitely been in meetings where people just go on about things, and there's of course there's always something in a meeting, or it comes up eventually where you're in your head, you're like, maybe that should be reserved for your therapist, because it's not group therapy, it's a support meeting. There's a difference.
There's a huge difference. And I think it's also up to the facilitators. It's also up to me when I facilitate a meeting to be able to say that in a way where I guess people don't, as less hurtful as possible. I mean, some people are just going to get hurt because, let's face it, they just want to get hurt. That's the role they're stuck in. There's a lot of people like that. So, if you're keeping your side of the street clean, and if you're keeping, when you're saying like, hey, here's the, here's what we aim for in our meetings. And, and every once in a while I've interrupted people in their shares and said, I'm really sorry, but, it's gone over, and there's a lot of other people who'd like to share, and.
I mean, I'm shocked every time you guys don't interrupt me.
You're not like that, though. You're just not like
going
that.
For ages.
Yeah, but you're not like that. And also, look, it's also, and that's the thing, a lot of people don't have it. It's common sense. If there's 4 people in a meeting and there's a half an hour left, I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
it's about tact. It's about understanding. It's about reading the room. And not everybody has that talent. It's true. Not everybody has that talent.
No.
So, and the last line is we learn to restructure our sick thinking one day at a time. And I love that. You know what I always forget in my recovery? The one day at a time. I forget that. I forget that.
My
Sorry, go ahead.
inner critical parent is like, why don't you have this done yesterday? And why don't you have a gold medal in it? Like, you need to have the Olympic gold medal
Why don't you
for the
have a
mental
gold medal in it?
gymnastics that I am putting you through.
You know what? I would say for mental gymnastics, I should have multiple gold medals.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple.
Oh, yeah.
The whole room should be full of them. I can't even like walk through my room of gold medals from mental gymnastics. I'm an expert.
Move over, Simone Biles. That's
Oh
what
my
my inner teen is doing. The mental gymnastics that would rival Simone Biles.
God.
We figured it out. But no, going back to something we had said in a previous paragraph about the tools that the inner parent uses when they're becoming loving, is they use gentleness, humor, love, and respect.
Oh
If
yeah. We
any
didn't even
like
talk
coming
about
into
that.
this, I'm like, wait, you mean I can be nice to myself
Yeah, exactly. And still get shit done.
and still get you to, and I'm totally also taking my time being like, I am in that weird transitionary period where I don't feel like I'm doing enough. We're like, because my whole household, like generationally from both sides, views productivity as self-worth.
Mm.
And so there's this fascinating bridge that's happening of, well, no, okay, if that's not the case, then where can I go? And I recently watched this video that was saying the root of modern productivity comes from manufacturing like 100 years ago, the original Ford lines. And because you
Mm.
could measure output, you can't always measure output. So if you're even just looking at it from the standpoint of modern corporation worker, which I've done, I have like 5 years of that, they measure things. They literally have programs that can watch your monitors and see what you're doing and see how many emails you went through and see how long you did that and blah, 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 blah. So you're trying to measure output for things that aren't the same. So one doesn't equal one in this case. No wonder we're burnt out.
Oh my goodness, that's a great point.
And then you're putting that into your, how you raise people, especially because this country that
Oh
I'm
my
in,
God.
at least
Yeah.
you're safer over in Germany, maybe.
We
I
are
don't know. I've
actually,
never
yeah.
been.
We
But
are way, yes, for that kind of thing, we're way safer.
oh,
I
maybe
mean,
I need to move to Germany.
starting to spiral, starting to get like all the world always looks at the States, adopt all of the horrible things that the States do, and the world like is about 20 years behind them on their evil
Culture.
plans. Yeah, and we're
Good.
starting to get like that here too.
Because I gotta say, like, it doesn't make sense. It's not healthy. The self-criticism to get you there, it literally feeds off of a toxic inner parent.
Oh,
Uh,
totally.
and because honestly, this country is really, really good culturally at abusing and keeping us in that unhealed state. Because if
Yeah,
somebody wants to sell you something, it's easier to sell something to someone who is dysregulated.
you think
Um,
it's by design?
it is totally by design. And if it was on accident, then they
Yeah,
hit a gold mine with it. I don't want to
yeah.
get into that too much, but it
Me
does, as
neither.
above, so
I
below,
go,
it
I will go.
reflects our own state.
I'll go ballistic when I talk about stuff like that. I just get so angry. So I can't even go there. I don't even
Yeah.
want to go.
Don't worry, we'll stop it there because the cure is an inner loving parent.
There
And
you
then if
go.
you have that on a societal level, when you have people, not everybody needs to be at the level of a sponsor, but people you can go to.
But
Personally, in my
that's the
ACA journey,
thing.
oh, good.
That's that simple old expression. If you want the world to be a better place, start in your own backyard.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. Start with yourself. And if the whole world worked a 12-step program, had Krishna consciousness, or had some religious principles, and I don't mean, spiritual principles, God principles, then this world would be quite different.
So
Quite.
long as people continue to be their own God. And I do think that when you answer to an inner critical parent with the
Mm.
standards that our own inner critical parent can give us,
Ooh,
you
yeah.
are trying to put yourself in as God in the worst possible position. You are
Yep.
trying to force yourself to do more than is humanly possible. You are trying to ascend this bodily concept of life in the wrong way. And you are only
And
going
you're
to,
worshiping the material life. You're
yeah,
worshiping everything that's in it.
the,
Every shallow, empty value, from Costco or wherever you're getting it from.
not my free samples. Don't you dare come for my free samples.
Come have a
But
taste.
oh my gosh. But you're right though, because so long as we worship any aspect of the material, we will always think that there is no one above us because we think we can always
Oh,
grow further and further. But we have a limit. Always have a limit. And there's only so much you can do on your own. And even then, a lot of it will depend on your karma, whatever you're
like,
born into in this life. But the way that we can surpass all of that, get out of that system, is literally step one: surrender unto a higher power as you know him, and or her, or they, or I trust me, it's so much easier when they're a person and you just figure out a personal pronoun for them and you run with it. Maybe they're gender fluid. There are stories
I'm
that will
not even
prove
kidding. They are gender fluid. Well,
they
Krishna.
literally are. I was going to say there's stories that prove, like, Krishna turning into a woman to trick the demons. Krishna literally not turning into a woman, because the first one's Mohini Murthy, but this one I'm about to mention is Yogini, which is my favorite form, where Krishna literally just cross dresses, stays in the male form, but cross dresses to go and try, because Radha's mad at him. And then when he's just thinking, like,
I love this Leela.
right?
I love this Leela. Yeah.
Yogini is, so far, has been my absolute favorite Leela of Krishna.
I gotta read this one again. I haven't read it in a while.
Let me know. Send me a book that has it because I never read it. I heard the
Okay.
story when I went on Yatra,
Okay.
which is pilgrimage for people who don't know what that word means. But it's this wild thing to me where, we all worship something. We are always inclined to worship something. And so we
Mm.
worship our jobs, we worship our families, we worship our money, we worship a box of Oreos. You know, where you find your joy, what you are attached to, that is what you worship because you are dependent on it for something that is supposed to be eternal. Satchit Ananda, eternally knowledgeable and blissful. You are not going to. The bliss ends with a bag of Oreos, and the older I get, the sooner the bliss ends. The less Oreos I can even get through, and the more sick I feel when I eat too many.
So true. It's so true. This is
It-
this is just truth. This is just truth. And I got news for you. If you yourself are your own sponsor, if you yourself are your own God, you got a horrible sponsor and you got the worst God. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit that might upset some impersonalists, and I don't even like to call people impersonalists, but there are, they call themselves that. But I'm just going to say that, yes, while we are part and partial of God, we're just like, if you look at like, who decided how much of the brain that we use, how much what is it, like 4% of our brain we use, or
I've heard
12?
like 10%, but that sounds generous.
Yeah, that sounds very generous. And like, let's say like that 10%, let's take like 98.8% of that and say that's the me. Right? That's no, that's perhaps one pin drop of that I can think of is that part of God in me. The rest is my conditioning. I believe that. And I believe that when we're in recovery and when we come to Krishna consciousness or when we come to some sort of spiritual path, we uncover that little part and we try to exercise it. Even with a teeny little muscle, we're still working out like this. I mean, you guys can't see me, but Kennedy can see me. I have this little
The
rubber band on my
tiniest
hand.
rubber band.
The tiniest rubber band trying to like exercise that teeny little muscle of God,
Yeah.
and that's what it is. That's what we're working with. And that's why when people say, oh, I'll go to a meeting a week, or sometimes I'll go to a meeting or not, and sometimes I work the program, I'm like, okay, so this Maya and my disease is 24 hours, 24/7.
Yep.
If I think that I can do something substantial with an hour a week of working a program, I'm in for a big fat treat. And
No,
it's not a good.
if you want to make consistent progress on something, and this is totally coming from like the motivational speaker level finance bro on TikTok, but this actually has a scientific backing. If you work at something 18 minutes a day, that is daily activity, then you will make progress in it.
I've heard this before too. I've heard 20 minutes, but who's counting?
There we go, 20 minutes. But
Yeah.
you're not going to do an hour a week and think that you did, because there's a thing about duration. Working out 20 minutes a day, working out, like reading
Yes.
20 minutes a day. And that works for my brain that can't focus that well. That
Me
works.
too. It's really
And
good as well.
and if I can get into a hyper focus, great, but that does not tend to happen in an exercise thing because I'm lazy. Um, but what it comes down to for me is there was this amazing conversation on Janmashtami of last year, and we're coming up on Janmashtami. It's on Monday. Happy birthday, Krishna.
No.
But there's he had this conversation with this woman who his Grace Ramapad Swami from the Temple of Chicago. He was visiting, and this woman raises her hand and she says, "I am God. God is in me, therefore I am God." And he just turns to her and goes, "So when you eat a sandwich and it's in your stomach, are you a sandwich?"
I like that. Who said that? Who said
His
that?
Grace Ramapad Swami.
I love it. So when you eat a sandwich and it's in your tum-tum, are you also a sandwich?
And I
No,
mean,
I'm a
the
sandwich.
funny thing is it sounds so unserious, but he said it with such a weight. Like it was amazing. But that poses a good question because that also means if you're thinking that because God is inside you, you are God, then you also have to identify with the negativity inside of you, with the darkness inside of you, with the bad habits you have. The better idea is not to identify at all with anything within the body other than the fact that you, the soul, are in the body. There are two birds sitting in the tree.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny. This brings up a whole other thing with me as well. I often there was a time where I like the dark side of life sometimes. I've always had a morbid fascination. I've always been one of those people. I've always been sort of a shoegazer, in some ways. Like I've been and someone like I was talking to this like really innocent, like Krishna conscious, like young girl who's like, I don't think ever did anything bad in her life. I don't know. She's very sweet. Um, she's like, I can't stand watching horror movies. And and I was like, and I thought about it and I thought, but that's also Krishna's energy. If Krishna is everything and he created everything, he's also created negative energy. It's there. It's there. And there was a time where I was like, I just don't judge it. It just is what it is. It's there. I mean, I don't have to bathe in it or soak in it or, you know, but it's there. It's there. And it's also Krishna's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we talked about. I think we talked about this while we were doing our steps the other day when we were talking about um acceptance. The acceptance of, yes, there's good and there's bad. And what we do with it. It's how we perceive it and what we do with it. It's like that's that old expression, when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. It's we learn our lessons. We learn how to utilize it. We utilize it.
It's interesting. One of my favorite things I've ever been told was His Grace Chaitanya Charan Das. Love him, the spiritual scientist. He told me what you have is a gift from Krishna. What you do with what you have is your gift to Krishna. We're the
Ooh, that's
marginal
nice.
potency.
I
We're
like
the,
that.
yeah, we're the marginal potency. Like we're gonna have one foot in, one foot out of both the spiritual and the material world. And we have to live in that balance. That's the purpose of the ego, is to keep us maintaining this body instead of, because if we went fully into the soul level, we would not maintain this body. And I was talking to a friend and she was saying we have darkness. Darkness is important because if you don't have that in the material world, you can't defend yourself all that well. It's
So true, though.
cats are lovely, lovely creatures, but they have claws. They have teeth.
And if
Dogs.
they're not domesticated, they're gonna mess you up. My mother got attacked by a cat. She had to go to the
Right?
hospital. She got attacked, like literally got attacked. She had stitches and everything. One cat.
Yeah, no,
Like,
cats are actually like terrifying. I love them. I will always love cats, but they're anyway. They're self-domesticated, but what it is about us is that we can be that feral.
yeah.
We can fully lean on that material side. We can fully lean on the dark side. And that's not to say that darkness is materialism. There are lighter sides to materialism. There are people who have done good things within materialism because that's part of karma
Mhm.
kanda. That's part of,
Sure.
using things in philanthropy. But then that also means that there are dark sides to spirituality. It can be abused. Look at Hiranyakashipu.
Oh yeah.
Look at Indra being on the being in that material concept of how he
And
wants to
if
do devotional service.
if you don't look at her on your Kashipu, and you don't look at that, there wouldn't be a Prahlad if there wasn't
No.
her on Kashipu. And this is so interesting because Prahlad acted and shone because of the darkness. He was
Hmm.
shining light so brightly because of the darkness of his father. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
his
the
father.
beauty of it. It's genuinely that balance is we can trust no matter what darkness we're going through, there's an equal opposite. And sometimes, like throughout this process, I have to remind myself the equal opposite is there for me. It's for my experience. It's not like I experience all the darkness and somebody else out in the world is getting to experience all the light. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
like everything you experience, if you want it, will be there. But back to what we were saying earlier, too, about how, when you are in ignorance, you attract ignorant people. If you aren't willing to change the circumstance, if you do not search for something different, it can be difficult to find or even to recognize when it is there, that light,
mm, hmm
because we have to train ourselves. The beautiful thing about a 12-step program is yes, you're supposed to have a community, a recovery group. You're supposed to have a sponsor. You cannot do it on your own as effectively, but
definitely.
you have to commit to it. You have to do it. You
Yes,
can have a coach working out, but if you ignore the coach, if you don't do what the coach asks you when you're home, as far as your diet plan and your supplemental exercise goes, you're not going to make it. If you look at Olympic athletes,
yeah.
what kind of sacrifices do you think they've made?
Oh my God. Well, let's not talk about the break dancer.
Well, are you talking
Ah,
the one from Australia? I love the meme. Honestly, she is a gift just for the memes. It
I know.
and that
I
too
feel
is,
really, I just wonder why.
you know what? I'm not even going to question it because at the end of the day, sometimes people show up in spaces that they don't necessarily need to be in. But I bet the girl she was battling against was actually so stoked to get a break. I bet, the
I
memes
didn't know.
honestly are because she's going to be the one we all remember. She's going to
Oh
be the
yeah,
one we all remember
it's
because
so true.
she's brought so many laughs and smiles and so like I don't mind that. And honestly on that, I think that we should make it a tradition where we have somebody who's more on the mediocre side of things in every single sport, so that, because we're watching the best runners in the world go up against each other. They because they're all neck and neck, we're just like, cool. But if you had a
Right.
normal
You
guy
won by
running
a
next
half
to
of
them,
a second. You won by 3 milliseconds.
yeah, which is amazing. But we need to
Yeah.
have one random guy. We need to have one random guy. And they like finish the race a whole like minute behind them. And, like,
Yes. And he's like, yeah.
they don't even make it. They get a little Olympic participation ribbon.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
But that's the thing, is that too, is we watch things like that. That's what gets promoted in our sphere. And our inner critical parent is like, why aren't you that good yet?
Yeah, it's true. Maybe in her head she was that good.
Honestly, she looked like she was having a good time.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
I'm in the Olympics.
Do we want to finish this paragraph?
We do. When we release our parents from responsibility for our actions today, we become free to make helpful decisions as actors and not reactors. This is so good. We progress from hurting to healing to helping. We awaken to a sense of wholeness we never knew was possible. Can I get an amen? Amen.
Amen.
So,
Haribo.
hallelujah. Haribo. It's so true when we release our parents from responsibility from our actions today, which is how many of us, I know I did. It's like, I wouldn't be here if you didn't do this to me, mom. Or I wouldn't feel like this if I didn't have my shitty childhood. Or, I mean, I didn't do that with everything, but there are some things where I'm like, God, I think, and the thing is, it's true. It's not, it might be true, but I have to release them from the responsibility
So
of
long
that.
as the responsibility is in the hands of someone that you can't control, and the only person you can control is yourself, you'll never
Exactly.
actually get to the point of healing.
It's so true. And let me tell you, let me be very honest with you about something. At the moment, this is very prevalent as I'm trying to have this conversation with my own mother at the moment. And, I spent a lot of years in recovery, and there have been amends on both parts. She's made some amends to me, and I've made amends to her. And I thought that was all done and over. And then I started to realize how she treats the family, how much lip service she does. And I just started noticing just behaviors that really triggered me. And I full combat confronted her, not with cursing or anything, but just, and not even combative, just like so blunt, no filter, like I usually do. And she totally blocked it. And it just became this thing. And ever since then, our relationship has completely gone down the dumpster. And the thing is that I've never wanted to accuse her of anything. And I never wanted to blame her. I just wanted to have a conversation around it. I wanted to know, like, maybe like what her parents gave her, or like, how can we approach this where I can have a conversation around these issues? Because I feel like sometimes with my parents, my dad's dead already, but that there's just some things that aren't clear to me that I'd like to have cleared up. And even that I have no control over. My mom cock-blocked me so fast, you have no idea. She's just like, I did the best I can. And actually, all the amends I made to you were I just did it to please you. I don't think I made any mistakes. That's what she told me. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? And what am I supposed to do with that? So I was just like, okay. And so I struggle with that. The thing is, I don't hold her responsible. I'm over that. I don't hold her responsible for everything. But I would love for her to take some sort of responsibility for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't. And I see that. And I see she desperately needs a program. And it's really sad to watch her grow old and to just give him, like in that paragraph that we said here when we were talking about healing begins when we risk moving out of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
If she would move out of her own stinking thinking and her comfort zone, do you know that she's right now in bed for the last 2 months? She hasn't gotten up. She can't brush her hair anymore. It's full of rat's nest. She hasn't had a shower because she's been physically ill and she's in really bad shape. And I've done everything that I could to try to help her from across the ocean. And she doesn't want help. She doesn't want to get up. She doesn't want to eat well. She doesn't want to do exercises. She's not been wanting to do this for years. I can't. And so that's where I say, all right, that's the situation I have right now. And I can't change her. And I can't hold her responsible. I can only hold myself responsible. So I'm trying to keep my side of the street clean. And that's all. That's all I can do.
The other day when we were having our meeting going over the steps that I've done, and my, I still live at my parents' house right now, and my mom comes in and she's rushing me, and she rushed me for something that wasn't even ready. Like we really could have just kept going for another 10 minutes and it would have been fine. And I go to her and I was like, hey, if I'm having a meeting with my sponsor, can you at least knock? If I'm too loud, can you text me? Like I'll see the messages come up around the corner of the screen. Can you literally do anything else? And her response was, it's my house. And yes, that's a fact. This is your house. But there is if it's your proprietorship over a compassionate response and your proprietorship is winning, that is an issue. And a lot of times where people are, what they have, this need for control, even if it's being the ones who put themselves in a hole they dug, that is their safety net. Being like, well, I made this bed, I'll lie in it, and I'm going to complain about it, but I made this bed, so I'm going to lie in it. And then there's that feedback loop. And it's so easy coming from having, been clinically depressed since I was 5. Like, it's so easy to see the hole and be like, I could get back in that.
Oh,
I know what's
totally.
in there. I could get back in that
Oh
hole.
my God. Totally. There's
I could dig it
cookies
deeper.
and junk food, and I don't get out of bed, and I don't have to take responsibility, and I can block everyone else around me. Yeah.
Yep. It's almost too easy. And what I like about this is it's saying we can be actors, not reactors. And
Yeah.
it's funny because a lot of people, there's like this famous saying where it's, you can't control other people's actions, but you can control your reactions. I think
Mm-hmm.
that step 1 is starting to learn how to react better. But when you can actually become the person in control of your actions, when you can become the person who stands up when you need to stand up, get things done when you need to get things done, your life actually has a better flow to it. And this
Yeah.
world is overcomplicated. Just look at the tax code. In fact, don't hurt yourself. Don't look at the tax code. But like just even every little aspect of our life that we've built for ourselves in society is overcomplicated. So it's easy here to just lay back and say, I'm done. We cannot afford to give up on lives and give up on ourselves. This is a precious existence we have. If I'm a dog, I'm not asking these questions. If I'm a fly, I'm not even able to ask the questions the dog can ask.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. As far as we
Maybe
know.
they're going.
You could be a hyper intelligent fly. Imagine it's your karma. You're born into the body of a fly, but you have the consciousness of a human.
That would suck. It'd be like, I know this is a pile of shit, but I really want to fly on
Yeah, I want to eat it.
it.
And so, there's this,
Oh gosh.
yeah, we cannot allow ourselves to be in that consciousness where we are human, but we are not treating the human body for what it is. We just
Utilizing it for what we have. We have that part and parcel of Krishna
Yeah.
consciousness. And if we don't exercise it with that little teeny rubber band, It's gonna wither and die. We're going to be drowned by Oreos and materialism.
And the thing is when you were that fly,
Mhm.
you were still a part and parcel. God was still also in there with you as Paramatma, as the super soul.
Yep.
He is now sitting with you as this human form of life and just going, okay, now's your chance. Come talk to me.
Yep.
Because
And
it's
then
surrendering.
and then you become someone like Trump. Could you imagine? Oh, sorry, I don't even want to get political now. I'm not gonna. Let's
I
not
mean, I
do
don't
that.
want to imagine that. But at the same time,
I mean, I did, but
if
I
you
think
are
I'd rather
ruled,
be a fly.
if you are ruled by anger, greed, and lust,
Oh God.
and literally anger, greed, and lust are the three gates to hell, according to the Gita. So if you are ruled by those things, be careful who you lead, because even it's somewhere in Matthew, I think it is, where it says like to lead someone into hell is like one of the greatest sins, like to mislead people. Like
I
when
don't
you
know if
mislead people,
you,
you only
but
lead them and yourself to hell.
I don't know that, but that sounds cool. I'd
I'm
like to
totally
find out.
butchering it, and I'm only guessing Matthew, but I know it's somewhere in the Bible because I've heard it multiple times.
Oh, nice.
Um, but that's the thing, is we can't mislead ourselves. We are in charge of who we choose to follow. And as so long as you are choosing God in the form of man or less, you're going to hurt yourself. And true, like you could choose nature as a god, and that's a good start. There's entire religions based off of that. There's Shintoism.
Mhm.
There's a lot of the native practices.
Mhm.
There are many forms of witchcraft. But
Mm.
if your quality of life is going to be equal to not only your level of surrender, but the God you are surrendering to.
Yeah, we progress from hurting to healing to helping. We
And a lot of
awaken,
us grew up
we
in
awaken,
households.
we awaken to a sense of wholeness we never knew was possible. I mean, how cool is that? Like,
Yeah.
how much better can we get? We heal from hurting to healing to helping. That's
Hmm.
the cycle, man.
That's
That's the
that's
cycle. That's
the
the
essence
upward
of
cycle.
yeah, that's the essence of a spiritual journey.
Yes, it is. Oh,
And
yes, it.
if we awaken to a sense of wholeness that we never knew was possible, that is something that is a promise that we have to act on faith. We have to
Yeah.
have faith in ourselves. And I'm going to tell you something wild. So if we have faith in God, that's one thing. But he has faith in us, because he will not give us something we cannot overcome. He will not
Mm,
give us something that we are not meant to grow from. He will not
mm,
give us something that, the only option is to defeat us, unless, of course, it
yeah.
is our time to go. Our only option is that it's either the end of our life, which will only be one point and we will move on to the next one, or in every single other case, we will survive it and we will grow and we will become better.
Great. Let's
He
go on to
has
the
faith in us.
next. Sorry. Absolutely.
So if God
And we
has
have,
faith in us, we should
yes.
have faith in us.
We should have faith in us. If
If
God
God
has
has
faith
faith in
in us,
us, then
yeah.
why wouldn't we have faith in us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. A very, very strong point. If God has faith in us, why shouldn't we have faith in us?
Listen, I did a lot of geometric proofs. Everyone but me hated them in trigonometry. I can prove this point. I got a bunch of lawyers in the family. Don't argue with me on this point.
I'm
God
not
has
arguing.
faith in
I think
me.
it's great.
Otherwise, I would not be in the places that I am in. He has
So
faith in
good.
me to get through it. He has faith in me every single time, because in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there was one disciple of his who was hanging out with the impersonalists. And that does affect
Mhm.
how you go through your spiritual process, because you won't, if all of your association says God is not a person, then you will start absorbing that. You
Of
are a
course.
rascal
Of
in
course.
syrup.
The thing is though, if you're strong and steady in your belief, you can go anywhere.
True.
But that's, not arrogantly,
Not arrogantly.
and that's the thing, not so, I'm so strong in my beliefs. It's, like let's say in the program. It's the same anywhere. You say in the program, don't go, when you're freshly clean and sober, don't go on a 12-step call, and help somebody, out of their pissful bed, with 6 bottles of whiskey in the house. Don't do it.
Yeah.
unless you go with someone else. And it's kind of the same if you're not, if your sobriety is not intact,
Mhm.
if you don't have enough, I guess, convincing, and if you're hanging out with, it's like what, like Jesus who hung out with the prostitutes, and wasn't tempted because he just knew it's just not what there was no
Not what he's
temptation
about.
in it. Yeah, there's just no temptation. So if you're like pretty solid in that's the same, that's like for me, when I go to the States in September, first thing I'm going to a Baptist church because I want to hear some gospel and I
Nice.
want to hear them sing about God and I want to get inspired by that. Not because I want to believe in Jesus Christ, but because it's going to help my bhakti.
Yeah.
Because that
That's what you have to
Shakti,
do.
that helps my bhakti.
Yeah. Accept what is favorable and reject the rest. But in this story where this disciple of Lord Chaitanya is with the impersonalist, he comes to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya tells him, you like, I don't want to see you, you're going to achieve me again. You're going to see me again 10 million lives from now. That's how long it's going to take you. And in the excitement of the disciple, like, I get to see you again in 10 million lifetimes, just like the genuine, like, oh my God, I love you. This will be great. I'm not going to be without you forever. It reminds me that in our own enthusiasm and love for the true loving parent,
Mm.
that is the faith that I will never be abandoned. That is the faith of, and that's not saying that for 10,000 lives I'm going to abandon you. I'm going to be with you but you're not going to see me physically again for 10 million lifetimes. So there's this beautiful thing that happens in bhakti for me where I realize I'm never going to be abandoned. I mean, living that is very different because, you're expecting the other shoe to drop, but Krishna doesn't wear shoes.
Mm.
Um, and that you're never going to be abandoned. And there's faith that you get another chance. You will always get another chance from God if you're ready for it. Of course, he's also going to be fair to other people, and he's not going to let you into that chance until you're ready. And you might think, oh, I am ready, but you might be there from the egoic standpoint. And,
Mm.
so long as you're in that ego, your critical inner parent is also running that show.
Right.
The
Mm.
ego is a very subtle, dangerous place. But
Totally.
you will awaken the sense of wholeness that you never thought was possible. And the only way to do it is to become limitless, let go of the ego, stand with humility, and be flippin' nice to yourself.
Mm. We're you know what we're doing? We're starting to do the you thing. We should start to speak in the I. That's
Yes,
what
thank
we're
you.
flipping to the you thing. I'm doing the same though. I'm doing the same. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to do this and we have to do it. No, 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 no. Nobody got to do nothing. We got to keep it in the I form.
What I
Okay,
love,
let's
what I
wait,
love
go
about
ahead.
the I form is it forces you into that vulnerability,
It does.
but it's so easy to let go of it because if you're impersonal about it, if you're saying you, or he, she, they, whatever, you don't actually take any personal responsibility for it.
Exactly. You're just saying, I know it's right. It doesn't say that I'm doing it right. It just says that I know it's right and wrong, but doesn't mean that you're personalizing it.
Yeah.
So it's so
We have
important.
3 little paragraphs left. Do we want to bust through?
Yeah, bust through those 3 paragraphs and then I mean we're already at almost an hour and a half.
Seriously?
I'm serious.
Mhm. By attending these meetings on a regular basis, you will come to see parental alcoholism or family dysfunction for what it is, a disease that infected you as a child and continues to affect you as an adult. You will learn to keep the focus on yourself in the here and now. You will take responsibility for your own life and supply your own parenting. Really quick on that, I love that being present also equals taking responsibility for yourself.
Yes.
It's very
Yes.
hard to stay present in the victim mindset.
Oh my God, totally. You'll learn to keep focus on yourself in the here and now. You will take responsibility for your own life and supply your own parenting. This I love. How many times have you been in a bad way when you're like, I don't know, me, when I am in a situation where I'm like, this is really annoying. Why is it his fault or her fault? Like looking for like just not taking responsibility for where I'm
Mhm.
at the moment, for my dissatisfaction.
I've been
Anyway,
there all the time.
yeah,
I
it's
think I built a house there once.
now I just vacation there.
Yeah. Now it's just occasional weekend trips. But hey,
It's
that's
occasional weekend trips with binge eating.
yeah. I'm not saying what's still in the house. That's a hoarder of bad habits house right there. Do you want to get the next paragraph?
Oh yeah. You will not do this alone. Look around you, and you will see others who know how to feel, who know how you feel. We will love and encourage you no matter what. We ask you to accept us just as we accept you. This is a spiritual program based on action coming from love. Say that again. You say that with me. This
This is
is
a
a
spiritual
spiritual
program
program based
based
on
on
action
action coming from
coming
love.
from love. There
I
you
think there's a delay on Zoom, so that's particularly
Yeah.
difficult.
What a great, I mean, that is the best line ever, isn't it?
Well, also just taking it from what it was saying earlier, about being an actor and not a reactor. Where is the root of our action coming from? So much of my motivation has been spite. Much of my motivation,
Totally. If it's not coming from love, it's going to suck anyway.
yeah.
It's just not going to be okay.
And it's not going to be lasting. It's not going to be healthy.
No, it's not going to be helpful.
It's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be healing. In fact, it will
Definitely
probably
not.
continue to hurt.
That's it. We are sure that as the love grows inside of you, you will see beautiful changes in all your relationships with God, yourselves, and your parents. And on that note, my dear Kennedy, that was a great, that was really good, wasn't it? The
That was
solution,
awesome.
that's the solution, the solution.
One thing I really appreciate about the way they write everything in this workbook is how gentle the language is.
I know, I know.
Because it's like they somehow know. I mean, they wrote a whole book on it. They wrote multiple books on it. But it's like they know how our inner critical parent works.
You know what the funny thing is that, and that's the funny thing, my critical parent hated this book at first. It's like, oh my God, just say what you freaking mean. Stop being so flowery. I can't stand it. Like all that mushy language. It makes me like, but I'm not like that anymore. And and I still do, I am still a rough around the edges, and I think I always will be. I'm not going to be like that kind of gentle little,
Don't be.
thing. But there is a very, very, very delicate part of me. Absolutely. And this speaks to that delicate part of me. And I'm vulnerable enough. I'm in a position in my recovery where I'm vulnerable enough to be able to accept that. And it's been a very long journey for me to get there. But I really love the one sentence that I'm going to take from me today is this is a spiritual program based on action coming from love. That's it. I'll like have that tattooed on me, actually. Tattoo worthy for me. On my neck, on my
I,
face.
I was gonna say your neck already has some lotuses on it, so I don't know
I
where
know,
you're.
I know.
Well, that's the thing though, is I'm realizing like my inner critical parent doesn't mind this. In fact, she's kind of oddly supportive, but I think that it's because I've convinced her she doesn't want to do childcare anyway. And so
Yeah,
she's
she
just kind of
doesn't.
sitting on the couch. She's laying in a lounge chair with a martini and is
And a
like,
cigarette.
and a joint probably if it's her.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Enjoy. Okay.
She's in like, she looks like she's in the theater and she's just like, fine, take over. What do I care? Fail on your own.
Yes, darling. Take care of the children now. Leave me alone.
Oh yeah, and so it's like right now it's like I don't know if you ever saw the movie Matilda.
Yeah, I love Matilda.
It's
I
like her
love that movie.
right now I'm in this process of like Miss Honey adopting my inner child instead of having her actual mom.
I love it.
So it's interesting. It's just, we got to have patience for ourselves in this process. And I think the line that I'm going to take, other than the one that you just mentioned, is the one that you take it one step at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah, that's something that I gotta, when you have like over 27 years of sobriety, it's the one day at a time thing, becomes, yeah, it becomes further and further away because there's a lot of 24 hours behind. And I tend to just to forget. I take it for granted, actually. I do take it for granted. I take it for granted. At times, not always, but at times. Anyway,
If you don't take
what?
something for granted,
Sure.
then it becomes, when you do actually have gratitude for it, it keeps that gratitude fresh at least.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I thank you, Kennedy. This was amazing. And it continues. Kennedy and I are going through the whole damn book every Thursday. Almost every Thursday. It won't be every Thursday, but it'll be almost every Thursday because I'll be
We're gonna
traveling a
do
lot.
the best we can with the tools that we got.
Like that. There you go. All right, Kennedy. I love you loads. Thank you again.
I love you too, Jiva G. Happy almost birthday.
Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about that again. I didn't even know how old I'm going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be 56 or 57.
I mean, I
I was
don't know.
born
I don't know the year you were born.
68. Come on, do math. I can't do math. 68.
68. Okay. So yeah, you're gonna be 58.
No, 56 or 57.
Oh, sorry. See, I can't math. I did theater. What are
Okay,
you
I
talking about?
can't math.
I was
I
a
can't
theater
math.
major. No, and I went one back and said, remind you, I got up for this at 6:30 a.m. my time.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, no, I should be getting up earlier, but whatever. It'll be 56 because I was born in 97, so it's plus 29 years.
Okay, cool. That's a good way of looking at it. I'll be 56. That's good. I thought I was going to be 57. I won myself a year in my head. Who cares?
We're all going to the same place.
Yeah, we are. All right, Kennedy, thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.